Alright, so some people have been asking me to review the Chinese medium tanks and also do a map review of Erlenberg, so I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone and try to get both of them done here. So this is the Tier A Premium Medium Chinese tank. It's sort of basically modeled off of the T-34 line. It's got a pretty decent turret for the tier. The gun handling is pretty bad. The gun depression is also pretty bad, and we'll talk about little bits of that as well. And as far as Erlenberg, there's basically three different sides that you can play Erlenberg. You can play this 1-2 line over here, you can play the middle over here, you can play the 9-0. Usually I find the 9-0 is the more important part of the map. The 1-2 area, there's usually a confrontation there, but I don't really think that you do need to send some tanks there, but I don't think that for the most part that you necessarily want to go there. A lot of times whoever is capable of winning the 9-0 wins the match, especially if you're on the northern spawn, because if you're on the northern spawn you win this 1-2 line, then you still have to cross this bridge to the south. It's easier to cross the bridge, early when you can, than to try to cross it later when it's actually being defended. And it's the same thing from the south. It's theoretically easier to win across here, but even from the south, and maybe we'll talk about that in another match, it's easier, in my opinion, to win the 9-0 and then figure out how you're going to cross. So I like to go up as usual and try to figure out, get some early spots if I can, try to figure out where their tanks are. We figured out where two of their 8s are, this Pershing and that T-69. This Pershing's not in a very good position. The T-69 went over the hill. When you look at how much backup we had, the majority of our tanks, including most of our 9s, went over to the other side. We have the T-54-3 on our side though, so that's something to keep track of. So what we're trying to do is still trying to figure out how many tanks that they've sent this way. They haven't really spotted anything on that other side yet, but we might be a little bit undermanned. We've now seen grand total 3 tanks here. That Pershing in the middle is not going to be a problem because it's going to be fairly easy anytime that he's lit for either side to shoot him, and that's sort of the problem with going to the middle, particularly in the early game. So I'm just trying to creep up here a little bit and try to get some spots and figure out where things are. And so again, I'm sort of waiting for things to develop here. I could go further forward here into that next bush and spot, but it's a little bit sketchy, particularly since we don't really own the middle. And if you look over on this west side, they didn't really meet any resistance, which makes you think that maybe they're going to be over on this side. Miserable went to the middle to chase down that Pershing and basically got himself obliterated. So now we know that they have a lot of tanks on this side, and so we basically have a decision to make. So what we have to do is this side is going to win, probably, right? It's just a matter of time. So we just need to not lose this side ahead of time. So we have 2 points of engagement here. We can either go down here over by Yankee over here and fight, or we can fight on the hill. Neither of those is a good option for the T-34-3 because if I'm over by Yankee, I'm basically peekabooing with a medium against heavies and into a bunch of fire. If I play on top of that hill, I don't have the gun depression or gun handling to play there effectively. So what I'm gonna do is, now that we control this west, it's going to be easy for me to play the middle and get flanking shots, and then eventually when these guys eventually kill this E-75, they're going to try to cross that south bridge, and that's going to allow me to push up underneath here and put some pressure through the middle, which will ideally take pressure off of these guys crossing the bridge, because once our squad crosses this south bridge into this area here, it's just a shooting gallery for the enemy team. They're just going to be able to light them up. So my thinking is that we've won the west, we've sort of more or less held court on the east, and now it's just a matter of figuring out how to get the rest of our team across the bridge to us. And so their team is sort of holding in this area. They're not really doing that much. And again, when you have the numbers in an area like that, and the tank strength, you want to be able to take advantage of it. The more that you delay, the more that you play passively, the worse chance you're going to have to win the game.
It's a trap!
And so you can see they're starting to mount up here, and they're getting shots on our guys as they're crossing the bridge. But the guys crossing the bridge area, anyways, for the most part, have not taken too much damage. There are some buildings there, but once you sort of start edging towards that cap area, it becomes very open. And so I have this opening now where I can get up under here. The T-69 has moved back. The KV-4 that was on the zero line hill is dead. The waffle had dropped back, so I can move up here now, which allows me to get underneath this hill. And so we're sort of losing on this north side a little bit here as well, so that's something that I have to keep in mind. And so they're still weak up this middle here. So for example, if I can take out this type without getting shot by any of their tank destroyers, would be nice. That's sort of what I'm looking to do.
It's a trap!
And again, the gun handling aim time with the T-34-3 is pretty bad, so a lot of times you don't get to aim quite fully. But the turret armor is pretty decent though. So if you can hull down with it, particularly if they're looking down a slope like that and you can hull down with your tank, you should definitely do so. So they've shifted a lot of their forces to this south hill. We still got our T-54 up here, but they're still weak in the sense that this T-69 is the only thing in the middle. So these guys have come back, so this T-54 is free again now. These guys are both low health, so in my opinion, like this T-54 and I could probably take them. They're starting to counter push onto the cap, which is not necessarily what you want to do. You want to let our team push up there and then just take your shots. But as you can tell, we've reduced their map control down to just a few squares, and so that's certainly to our advantage. The T-54 clips out the type there. Well, the type was one shot, but you know what I mean. And then so now what's happened is that this area is free, so now we can get free shots onto the back of here. And so the T-54 is going to use the rest of his clip on that Centurion. And then now it's GG, right? They have, like 5 squares of map control. And then it's just really a matter of mopping up. So really what won the game was the fact that we delayed them here long enough, right? They had, 8 or 9 tanks on this east side, but we delayed them long enough for our west side to come all the way in. And our west side didn't completely YOLO across that south bridge, which is certainly a positive. And then the rest at this point is just mop up. So in summary, I still think that this 9-0 is important. I thought that their team could have played it better. If they had been more aggressive, they would have been able to wipe us up here. And then that would have allowed them to focus on our team coming across this south bridge. But because they allowed us to survive the T-54-E1 and myself, that basically made it easier for us to stay on their flank and take pot shots at them. And that was really their downfall. The fact that we still had tanks over here, the fact that we had an artillery literally in A0, but they never pushed north with all of their forces. So ideally what they should have done, especially with that number of tanks, is push through, clear out this east area, and then come back and then catch all of these guys as they're coming across. Let them start approaching the cap and just lay into them, and that would have probably won them the game. And so if we look at the stats, it was a mastery badge, but mastery badges in this tank are not really super hard to come by because it is kind of one of the more awful tier 8 premium tanks, in my opinion. And when you look at the stats, this is what you get when you play with the officers of G, a combined 323 damage. Just kidding. Please don't kick me out, Yankee. No, but so we essentially were up against a greater force there, but we ended up doing a lot of damage because we stayed alive, right? We relocated out into an area where we could actually be a little bit more effective. And in a lot of tanks where you have very poor gun depression, it's almost always better to be, on lower ground trying to fire up at something, because playing inside hills or on top of hills doesn't work very well. You have to overexpose your tank in order to deal damage. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for the T-34-3 and or Erlenberg, and thanks for watching.